Let's talk about parasites. Not the worms in your gut or ticks on your skin. Let's talk about the most successful parasite that ever invaded your body. One that you probably loved. One that might be reading this right now. Your baby. Or more specifically, you when you were a baby. Because pregnancy is the most metal biological process in nature. It's a 9-month invasion, a hostile takeover, a brutal negotiation between two living beings with completely different survival agendas. And the baby always plays dirty. This is the insane science of pregnancy. Our story begins with biological warfare. An army of 280 million sperm cells launches an assault on the female reproductive system. Their mission: penetrate the fortress, reach the egg, merge genetic code, and create new life. But this fortress was designed to kill them. The moment they enter, they're hit with an acid bath. The vaginal environment is deliberately hostile pH levels designed to murder invaders. Millions die in the first 30 minutes. The lucky ones, they brought back up. Seminal fluid is alkaline, giving them temporary protection like chemical body armor. But this is just the beginning. The survivors face a treacherous maze labyrinth of protein nets and dead ends where millions more get trapped and die. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of immune cells patrol like guards, devouring stragglers and attacking anything that looks suspicious. Of the 280 million that started, maybe a few hundred make it through. That's a 99.9999% casualty rate. Finally, the handful of survivors reach their target, the egg, a giant 10,000 times their size, loaded with nutrients and 100,000 mitochondria, cellular equivalent of a nuclear reactor. But here's the thing, the egg is picky. All these sperm are trying to get in, but the egg only accepts one. When it finally does, the genetic material of two individuals merges, and something completely new is born. Not quite human yet, but the potential to become one. Now, the real invasion begins for the next few days. This fertilized egg now, called a zygote, divides rapidly while traveling through the fallopian tube toward the uterus. It's looking for a place to implant, to set up camp, to begin its 9-month occupation, but the mother's body isn't sure it wants a tenant. This is where things get fascinating and deeply weird. The zygote has to convince the mother's body to let it stay. And it does this like a virus by hacking into her cells. The developing embryo splits into two teams. One team will eventually become the baby. The other team, they're called Trophoblasts, and they're basically a suicide squad. Their entire existence is dedicated to invading the mother's body, building infrastructure, and dying so the baby can live. Think about that. When you were an embryo, half of you was this guardian angel clone whose only purpose was to make sure you existed. These cells never got to become human. They lived, served, and died for you before you even had a heartbeat. The trophoblasts release thousands of tiny bubbles filled with genetic material, essentially human viruses that invade the mother's uterine cells. They're not asking permission. They're brainwashing her cells to help the embryo attach instead of rejecting it. This is biological warfare. And if the mother's immune system doesn't like what it sees, game over, the embryo gets flushed out. About 50% of fertilized eggs never make it past this point. Your mother's body was the judge, jury, and executioner. And you somehow passed the test. If you make it through, congratulations, you've successfully invaded. Now comes the really brutal part. The trophoblasts transform into violent invaders, drilling into the uterine tissue like tiny parasitic octopuses. They spread through the mother's body, killing her cells, ordering others to self-destruct, sometimes devouring them whole. This sounds horrifying, and it is, but it's also necessary. The embryo needs access to blood, the mother's blood, to survive, so it digs deep. The trophoblasts burrow into blood vessels, tearing through tissue, remodeling arteries, and connecting the embryo to its only food source. And here, that's where the parasite comparison becomes impossible to ignore. The embryo is literally feeding off its host. But wait, it gets weirder. Some of these trophoblast cells don't stay in the uterus. They leave. They spread throughout the mother's entire body into her organs, her bloodstream, even her brain. And they stay there for years, sometimes decades. That means if you have kids, Parts of them are still living inside you right now, and parts of you still living inside your mother. Scientists call this microchimerism, and we still don't fully understand it, but we think these cells are spies sending signals to the mother's immune system, saying, don't attack the baby. It's one of us, protected. By week 8, the blob of cells starts looking vaguely human. Tiny arms, tiny legs, a face, organs forming. It's officially a fetus now, and the invasion intensifies. The trophoblasts build an entirely new organ inside the mother's placenta, an organ that didn't exist before pregnancy and will be ejected and die shortly after birth. It's a temporary life support system, a fortress protecting the fetus from infection, and a highly efficient nutrient extraction device. Because let's be clear, the fetus is a parasite in the truest biological sense. It takes resources from the host without providing benefit in return, at least, not immediately. The placenta releases hormones that hijack the mother's metabolism, funneling glucose directly to the fetus. If the fetus gets too greedy, the mother can develop gestational diabetes, her own body starving for energy while the parasite feeds. Her heart works 40% harder. Her blood volume increases by 50%. Her organs get compressed. Her immune system is partially suppressed so it doesn't attack the foreign invader growing inside her. Pregnancy is exhausting because it literally is a battle. But here's the beautiful part and why this isn't a horror story. There's cooperation too. The mother's body actively helps. Her immune cells form a protective barrier around the embryo, guiding its growth, ensuring it develops correctly. If the embryo has serious genetic damage, her body will often terminate the pregnancy automatically. It's quality control, and the fetus, it's not trying to kill its mother. That would be evolutionary suicide. If mom dies, baby dies. So there's a fragile piece of biological negotiation where both sides push and pull, take and give, until eventually, 9 months later, a baby is born. The mother has sacrificed immense resources. The trophoblasts that invaded her body have died. The placenta, this incredible temporary organ, is expelled and discarded like biological scaffolding no longer needed. But from this brutal, parasitic, invasive process, a new human emerges. And that's the insane part. That's the beautiful part. Pregnancy isn't gentle. It isn't peaceful. It is a 9-month biological war where two living beings with different genetic interests somehow manage to cooperate just enough to create something miraculous. You were a parasite once. You invaded your mother's body. You hijacked her immune system. You stole her nutrients. You sent your cells into her brain. And she let you... Not because she had a choice at first, but because biology found a way to turn invasion into creation. That's not just science. That's poetry written in DNA. So the next time you see a pregnant woman, remember, there's a beautiful little parasite inside her, fighting for survival, negotiating with her immune system, building an entire organ just to exist. And it's one of the most metal things biology has ever invented. Because from violence comes life. From parasitism comes love. From invasion comes family. That's the insane science of pregnancy.